Thank you, Mary Beth, and I'll welcome everybody, both here at Irvine International Academy's location, school board members and others, Dr. Bean, our executive director, Mary Beth, office manager, and then parents online as well to this, the December 15th, 7 p.m. Board meeting. We're located at 4782 Karen Ann Lane, Irvine, California, 92604. In a moment, we'll take our roll call with our board. And this evening, our quorum and board members are all here present. I also welcome our back office manager, Delano Jones, who will make two presentations as well. Hello, Delano. We see you. Thank you. Let's go ahead and begin then with a roll call and call this meeting to order. Taking from our notes top to bottom, Doug Hewson, I am present. Brett Freeman. Present. Thank you. Jolene Smith is absent tonight, as is Miller Zhuang. David Sun, we want to give you a moment. We know that you're potentially participating from 602 Unit 1 Beijing Hairun International Community, Beijing, China. David, present online. We'll wait for a moment. And if he joins us later, we'll recognize him, but we'll mark him as absent at this point. We didn't think he would join us. And then Felipe Delgado. Present. Also the one who makes it snow. That's something not everybody will understand. And Molly Chang. Present. Wonderful. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a approving of the order of agenda. Let's stand if you're able. And do we have our flag in our building right now? Not right now. Not right now? Okay, we will point to that direction then. And a volunteer to lead it, or shall I? Well, let's have Felipe.
Yeah. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Felipe. Wonderful. Board members, if you'll take a moment just to review again the agenda, and if it looks appropriate to you, I'll ask for a motion to approve the order of the agenda that we'll follow, which starts with closed session, then we'll do the open session items. Motion from anyone?
I motion we approve the agenda.
Okay, Felipe Delgado motions. I'll second that. Let's do a roll call vote. I'll start from my left. Molly Chang. And Doug Hewson's a yes. Brett Freeman.
Aye.
And Felipe Delgado.
Yes.
Great. Our order of agenda is approved. For public, we'll have a shorter closed session. We're going to have an internal discussion without attorneys, just on potential for litigation. And then more importantly, we're going to approve 2 employee contracts in closed session. We'll review those with Dr. Bean, whom we'll invite in. And so I'm anticipating 10 to 15 minutes, not really much more than that. I think we're going to have some great updates. So we'll go ahead and we'll pause the recording and then we'll meet in our normal closed session. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to our December 15th, 2022 board meeting. Reporting out of closed session, we had 2 contracts to consider, and the first was part-time HR director. I made a motion, and then Felipe Delgado second, and we had roll call vote, and it was unanimous. So on that one, Mary Beth, I made the motion, Felipe Delgado second. Then we had a second contract, which was a revised contract that extended a couple weeks, a previous employee who continued on to do some work. I made the motion, and then Brett Freeman seconded, and then that one was unanimous as well. We also had brief discussion about potential for existing litigation just internally as a team, but not with outside counsel. That moves us on then to number 4, public comments on items that are not on the agenda. Pause for a moment and look to Mary Beth. Any cards submitted or public comments on non-agenda items? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to 5. These are information items, and it's hard to communicate all of this. We'll look to our executive director, but all of us spent an afternoon filled with a lot of smiles per gallon, a lot of joys. This very room looked very, very different. Dr. Bean, please share your executive report and maybe some of the fun from today. Would you please?
Absolutely, thank you. Just a few items. One, we're very excited about our enrollment. We are now at 224. Yes. Side believes that we could be at 230 in January, maybe even 240, based on the interest level. So an increase in interest level of our school for sure, because of all the great things happening here. The other thing to share is that we are officially going to start our full day kindergarten when we get back from the Christmas break. So kindergarten will extend the day to the same time as the rest of our grades. So that's good. Third thing is that we did submit for material revision that you approved last month. It should go up to a board hearing in January for the first OCDE meeting. I think it's January 5th. So that's done. And then we wanted to celebrate what you saw this evening. We had an amazing turnout for our winter concert and winter festival. We even had our very own, one of our board members, Felipe, as the Grinch. You know, they say the Grinch stole Christmas, but he actually gave Christmas tonight. Made some snow fall and just even gave a very generous donation to our PTO and in our school. So thank you. A lot of that happened out there was because of you, Felipe. So thank you.
My wife made me.
Your wife made you, of course.
Made me do all that.
And then we started beginning of December our fundraising drive. As you remember, as you recall, we got a great gift from the Larry and Linda. Is that correct? Helen, thank you. Foundation, Hoag Foundation, of $125,000 matching grant. So we let our community know of that money, of that grant, matching grant. And so we sent home messages, a hard copy of the donation letter, as well as envelopes. And we started to receive several parents donate anywhere between $500 to, we had a family donate $3,000. So we have a lot of families writing or are gifting us this amount of money so that we can match the 125,000. So if you haven't, donated yourself, I strongly consider board members to donate to our school. So I'll say that, and we shared that with our parents tonight. They were very happy about everything that they saw. The festival was great. Our parent-teacher organization is very strong. They plan it very well out there. This morning we had coffee with the principal in which we sat parents down in front of the augmented reality devices. And they got to experience that and they loved it. Yeah, so they got to experience what the students experience. The lab is up and running. It's been up and running for a couple weeks. So very excited about that. What else? I'm trying to think about this evening. Just, families just came up to me individually, said that they just love the family culture, the environment that they're experiencing. Same things that our staff and teachers were saying this past couple of weeks. We had a dinner, Christmas dinner, and many of the staff members, or all of the staff members actually, are saying the same thing. So a lot of successes for our school. Are there certainly improvement areas? We do have areas of improvement, and we'll continue working hard on enrollment, and we'll continually working hard on providing a safe environment for our school and our parents. And then of course, we'll go through the growing pains of adding a full day kinder and go through the growing pains if OCDE approves the 7th and 8th grade program. So that's the short end, but we do want to, Mary Beth and I do want to actually recognize the amazing work that you all do for our school. You are unsung heroes behind the scenes. So we have a little Christmas gift for you, each of you, yes. And we just want to say thank you from the bottom of our heart on behalf of our community. Thank you for the work that each of you do. I know, Felipe, he's here, weekly, daily, looking for me, doing things for our school, things that people wouldn't recognize and see. And then your financial support, right, through the foundation, Brett, has been amazing, right? That has really kept us going. And we've told families that because many of them ask us, why are we needing to raise this money? And we've told them that unlike other schools, we have, well, let me rephrase that. Schools that have art, music, and STEAM actually have to raise the money for that because the state fund doesn't necessarily cover that. So you've got Irvine Unified, that's a huge foundation. They raise money for those kinds of programs. So I said, that's what we did this year. We're raising money to have those programs here. Hopefully next year our enrollment will increase such that we don't have to ask our parents to continue sustaining those programs. Those three programs are huge: STEAM, music, and PE. We want to continue those programs. And then the last thing is we launched a new website. Amazing. And Felipe and Brett, huge. Of course, our staff, Mary Beth, Sai, but I wanted to in particular, as we're thanking you guys, you two made a huge contribution in terms of your time and work efforts in launching that. And now let's shout it from the mountaintop to all of our community to come to the website, because I am really proud of that website. So I think we should share it loudly. I think that's it, but we just wanted to appreciate all of you, and I'm sorry the other two I don't think are on, but if you can extend our gratitude to them, we'd appreciate it. Okay.
Or
So thank you.
comments, or reflection.
I have one comment. It's hard to communicate after the fact how electric this school was this afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Hundreds of people packed right in this very building, and then the youngest TK and Kinder First singing with our tremendous music director and parents. It looked like paparazzi in here. And then we moved off to the second, third graders. And then we had the fourth, fifth, and sixth together in another session. And the songs are delightful. I was recording them, just everything you'd want a school to be. And then I stepped out on the patio and I met two parents who have been here no more than days. And I said, what was the attraction of the school? And I thought they were going to say Mandarin immersion. It's great. They love that. But they said, no, this social environment, as you call it, community, super attractive to us, and already just immersed in it. And so fantastic. Just applaud what's happening with the staff here. Board comments, others that you'd have for Dr. Bean from that report before we move on to financial matters.
I just wanted to echo how enjoyable that event was. It felt very much like a family. It was really, really nice. Wonderful. Thank you to the PTO also for doing that. I mean, tremendous, all the efforts there. I just had a question, Dr. Bean, it's just, I know it's something on top of mind, but I'm just, curious if we have found any experience within our parent community that can help us approach the external community to see what can be done to engage them, show them the vision, and see how they can be part of being here, whether it's with their time or their treasure or any other way to help with the fundraising activities. I think that's an important component of being part of Irvine and surrounding areas. I know we're under-resourced and understaffed, but I just wasn't sure if that's something that we have a plan of attack for.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because Felipe could probably answer that question, because just last week he joined us to meet with the K family to start looking at locations and planning for our gala at the end of April. And we're brainstorming of community people that we need to contact. And so, yes, we're constantly, and I know Mary Beth has a list of them, and she wants me to get on a lot of those, and I think that's the right thing to do. So, Felipe, we do appreciate that he's willing to actually lead the gala committee. So he's going to organize that. But yes, to answer your question, that's very important to do. We hope to raise that $125,000 before the gala. So the gala is going to be more celebratory, and Felipe can share the vision for that.
So since you brought up the gala, it's gonna be a lot of work, right? And so right now, there hasn't been a lot of movement yet, only because we're so involved with the festival that was going on now, and it seems like the same people, are key to executing something of that, size. So, but starting tomorrow, once we put away all the accoutrements, yeah, you're gonna start hearing more from me about that and getting people involved and gearing up that team. So.
But talk about the vision of how we don't want to make it this huge thing.
There's
Yeah.
right now, the vision is, right now, when you have a vision of what a gala is, involves, everybody, even though may never have attended one, you have this vision of what that's like with a full dinner and a big screen and fancy guests and auctions and all these different things. But I think we need to scale some of that down where since it'll be the first one that we're gonna attempt and the resources that we have, it'll be a little bit more scaled down. But still the focus would be, fundraising, right? And a scale where helps the school, right? And that's the goal. So, more to come on that, and, hopefully we get a lot of participation. from everybody.
Do we have some idea regarding the budget for the gala? That's too early. Because what I just, hope we avoid a situation where we have this really nice event, we spend all this money and we don't raise nearly as much.
Right.
or
Yeah.
So.
That's part of all the budgeting and the pricing of the tickets to cover for the food and things like that.
I would say that that there's gonna be some hard decisions to make, and part of that, and it's gonna start right at the very beginning with the budget.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm focused on that. Yeah, absolutely. It would, we had an opportunity to meet with, Ethan, okay, and his wife and stuff, and they gave us a lot of insight on running something like that, their experiences. And so I've had an opportunity to digest that. And our first meeting, which will probably be, I'm gonna say, first week of January, you guys are we're gonna get involved here. Yeah, you're gonna get some pretty, rough stuff from me. A lot of it's gonna be about the budget costs and we're gonna execute what the plan is and all that. I've got it already up here, okay? I just need to communicate it all to the team. And so, yeah, that's gonna happen. So, yeah, it's definitely a focus.
So,
Yeah, so.
so as you're talking about the fundraiser for the kids, and I actually think about the songs that the kids were singing today. Maybe we can have a special group to sing as an entertainment.
Yes.
Because they did so well.
Yeah.
I think we all talk about tonight, just presented, this is a big family, huge family. You see the parents here. But as the kids are standing up here and singing, you can tell that they're really into it. I mean, sometimes kids, coming up the stage, they're scared and they're goofy. But tonight I saw that they're really singing out from their heart. I mean, they're just so relaxed. That tells me they're so comfortable here. And so, yeah, so proud of them.
Okay, so I don't want to let it all out of the bag here, the plan in my head, but one of the fundamentals, I did study galas and that kind of things, and one of the things that I learned or I've divined is you have to deliver the goods. That's the key to a gala. You have to deliver the goods, and there's different kinds of goods that galas deliver. Some of them, the keynote speakers, important speakers, some of them, they have big screen TVs, some of them, they have fancy auctions, or whatever that is. And so in my mind, when I try to think of what would be the goods that we could deliver, and it's our staff, it's our school, it's our children, it's our community. That's the goods that we have to deliver, or we have to expose. That's what's gonna make donors to open their pockets. That's what our kids are gonna be. So if you ask, that's gonna be key, what you're saying, and that's my vision. So now all I gotta do is make that happen.
And it's a team, right? It doesn't all rest on your shoulders, but thank you for being the point leader in that too.
That's the plan.
In keeping with the PTO and the fundraiser, Mary Beth, I'm happy to turn in the Doug and Maureen Hewson gift this season too. Happy also to pre-commit to purchase of a table. And I will fill it with outside people who have a heart for education and high net worth. And so that's a commitment for your game.
I would also add that I've been in contact with the previous principal of this school, El Camino Real. He wasn't the original principal, but he was the second principal of the school, and he was here for 30, 40 years. He is lives locally by here. I invited him to the celebration here today. Unfortunately, was not able to attend, but he has volunteered to give a seminar speech about some of his experiences and things. That I think and I'm hopeful that have an opportunity to meet with him and Dr. Beans here, and we can kind of throw some ideas around. So I was able to contact him, and I'm hopeful that he will be part of that. Yeah, I think he'd be a great, again, the goods, something we could bring.
Wow, inspiring. Wow. Well, I think any one of our board members could inspire others as well. A lifelong educator talking about passion for education. And, you know, as you craft it with the team, we're looking forward to it. We have Delano Jones that manages our back office accounting and processes. Delano, thank you for being so patient. I think you have an overview of October's financials, and then later in the agenda, I think you're going to give us a summary of our audit and audit process and results. Do you want to do your fiscal update at this point then for October?
Yes, perfect. And good evening, everyone. I'll start with the October financials. And I believe on the agenda, we're also going to approve, just as a point of reference here, I believe the first interim, and then I believe there is a conversation regarding the audit. All right, perfect. All right, so I'll focus a little bit more on this report that you're seeing here, as the first interims are actually built, or excuse me, or is this exact information on a standard report template that your authorizer requires, with some more, projections, etc. But for the most part, this information in this column will be the same, as well as your budget, right? Because this budget was approved, if you recall, about a month ago. And so this budget now replaces the original budget that was approved back in late June. Through October, and again, we're looking at this. And so for those who are new to the board this year, those who were here last year can recall that we approved this same document, if you will, the first interim right around this time last year. So just as a frame of reference, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, the why and how, once we get to it. But I want you to sort of have these numbers stick in your minds, because you will see them again on the interims. And I just want to make sure that, you get the context for them. As we look at our revenues through the month of October, we've received $705,499. And again, over here on this chart, you can sort of see that the LCFF revenue sources are the main ingredients here, right? That's the biggest source of our funding for the most part. And so that's, again, our enrollment / ADA is based upon that as well. On the expenditure side, you can see our salaries versus our budget: $376,197, and then $134,000 for benefits. Personal expense, 708,000. Again, you can see here, it's one of the bigger portions of our expenditures, if you will. That usually is the bulk, if you will, almost well over 50%, 60% of our expenditures are on our people and benefits, which is one of our most valuable asset, obviously our students and our staff, right? On the program side, 183,000 on books and supplies and office products, on services and operational things, 347,000. Other Agua, $437. Our total expenditures here of 1.2 million. Subtracting our expenditures from our revenues, you can see here that we have a deficit of 534,000, as I mentioned before. That's one of the the main. This is natural for this time of the year to see your entity upside down in terms of having a deficit spending. But as we go through the year, and then if we hit our P2 ADA as we should, we hope to see that number come back to that net income, what we predicted here or adopted in the budget of 32,921. But this is where the rubber meets the road, right? And it's one of those things where, as I mentioned before, it's natural for this to occur, but we also want to make sure that in the bigger scheme of things that the pipeline for other revenue sources. I heard you guys talk about the gala and some fundraising activities and things like that. And I'm glad those things are starting. You guys are lit the fuse or lighting the fuse or preparing to, launch these events. Because it certainly will help the bottom line as we get into the spring and obviously towards the end of the school year. So, this is that time for those things to start to come to fruition or to at least start to grow some legs. As we look at our cash flow overall, we began the month with 427,000 and we ended here at 419,840. I'll take a look at the balance sheet really quickly. And again, here, as I mentioned, you can see our cash here of 400,000. You can see our accounts receivable, some amounts that we were paid back to the government. Our prepaid expenditures put our total assets at 283,000. You can see here our total liabilities. A lot of that is that unearned revenue of 200,000. Again, as I mentioned, year over year, we'll expense against that because these are restricted revenues that we receive that we're slowly spending down over time. And then our charter school revolving loan here of 218,000. Also, obviously, our normal, what I would consider accounts payable transactions up here. And then obviously some amount for vacation liability here puts our total liabilities at 619,000. Subtracting that from our total assets, you will see here that, and again, you add back in where we started the year, where we finished the year, add this back in, which is the deficit. You can see here, right now we currently have a deficit fund balance of 336,000. But again, as I mentioned, there's a $500,000 loss that's currently on the books for this year. But obviously, as I mentioned, as we get into where our revenues now tend to catch up a little bit, we'll see that number go back positive for the end of the year. One of the things that I do want to caution about, though, is again, for the first half of the fiscal year, or should I say the first quarter, you're being really funded on last year's ADA, right? Which was much higher, significantly, exponentially higher than it currently is. So obviously you will see that as we get into the latter parts of the year, once we turn the corner into March, April, when P1 is actually trued up, you'll see that, we're going to get less revenues because it now will be based upon actual ADA for this particular year. And then obviously that will carry forward into next year. And then obviously that same cycle repeats itself. But then by this time next year, we're hoping that you'll have far greater enrollment to offset that. Because it's really about a 6 to 12 month process to sort of get your revenues back, on track once you've lost some ADA. So this is currently where we are through October. Again, nothing like last October where, you know, we had a lot more in terms of revenues coming in to offset, you know, expenditures and things like that. So this year is a little bit more true to par in terms of what you would normally see in a school without, you know, a high enrollment or a high revenue stream. This is what you would normally see here this time of the year, in terms of a deficit through the first quarter. I will stop and take any questions on the October financials, if there are any.
Yeah, go ahead, Bud.
Thanks, Solano, for going through that. One question. We had a year-to-date budget amount of 106 for federal revenue, 106, 186.
Mhm.
Do you know what that amount was for?
And are you looking at the budget?
First page, summary.
Yeah, so most of that is the PCSGP grant. And so what tends to happen with that is that, so we've submitted the reimbursements for that. I tell you already, we've submitted a reimbursement for roughly about 75,000. That would have been for purchases through the end of September, right? So, but we have not received that yet. So that's the bulk of that is related to that.
But we will be getting that 106?
Yes, you actually will be getting a lot more than that. We have budgeted there in that column about 400,000 overall. It's just for this particular period, I budgeted about 100. I anticipated getting the bulk of the PCSGP that we had filed for, but we haven't received it yet.
All right, thank you.
And just as an FYI, those reimbursements from the state, they take roughly about 6 to 8 weeks, you know, depending. Right, so we can always bank on those sort of, you know, trailing quite a bit behind as well.
I've got a request. In some of your meetings with Dr. Bean, would you, even as I know you do often, make us aware of any other grant opportunities? For instance, I know each February there's a dual immersion potential federal grant. It may not apply to us the way we do school, but I just wanted to ask if you continue to keep that on the forefront. You always do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The PCSG grant has a follow-on. Ours will expire, I think, this year, but we can apply for a follow-on for 100,000. I'm just forecasting. You know it better than me.
Yeah. We could touch bases on that. And, you know, the trouble with that PCSGP grant is it's only sustainable. You know, usually some of your planning areas, right, and then into that first year. But you know, one of the things I don't like about the grant is that it's on a reimbursement basis, because boy, does it eat into your cash flow and have to, you know, reach into your left pocket, if I could sort of use that analogy, to, you know, the front to pay for things. It's a great grant, but poorly implemented from the state. And it's actually coming from the federal government. So, you know, not to knock them, because we are thankful for it, but boy, could they have tweaked it a little bit better in terms of how they funded it. But to your point, Doug, yes, there is a potential for an additional 100,000, which would carry the same strings as they carry now. And just as a side note on that, they're thinking about, the state is thinking about applying for an extension with the federal government, the federal Department of Education, on this particular grant, because the way that this grant works, and I won't belabor this any, is that the federal government doles it out, and then they give the states, you know, a certain amount of time to spend it. Right. And so then that reflects to us the same, we have the same time frame. But if they can't spend it or show that they've spent all of it in the same way, they'll ask for an extension, and then that extension would apply to everyone. So there's always that piece of it as well, too, if we don't spend it all this year. I think they'll roll it to like June of 23 or something like that. I'm sorry, June of 24. All right, so those are the October financials. I'll show you really quickly. Am I still sharing? No, I'm not. I'll share with you really quickly the check register, and then I'll turn it back over if there are any questions here.
One more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The year-to-date actuals on the expenses versus the budget, is that a function that some of the expenses just haven't hit yet? Or are we just, tightening our belts here?
Both.
Okay,
Yeah, because in certain cases, we'll budget for a certain thing to happen, by a certain time, and then it could be delayed, or it could be that, it just has not popped up yet. It could be in next month's, because remember, the snapshot is looking back at October. So, depending on what is, like, as an example, I'll give you an example down there in the total services and operating, that budget line item. I know that there is a boatload of special education expenditures that will start to show up in the spring that are not currently here yet, right? As an example, right? Things like that.
thank you.
All right, so the check register, and I believe you guys have that. I don't necessarily have to share it, but if you guys have it and you have any questions related to it, please let me know. The transactions are all public, so if there's any supporting documents or anything that you guys have a question about a particular expense, be happy to clarify or share more detail.
Good. And I know you've always been good. If we have a follow-on question individually, you take our emails, so that's nice.
Absolutely. Yes. Please. You could always reach out to Dr. Bean or Mary Beth if someone doesn't have my email address or phone number, and they'll share it with you guys. You can certainly have, any sidebar conversation if need be.
Well, hang with us for the latter part of our action items as well. Thank you for those updates, Dr. Bean and Delano. Moving on to number 6, consent agenda items. This will deal with a consent to approve the prior minutes. We will give opportunity for public comment, although it's rare that we would have it for previous agenda. Any, Mary Beth? Okay. Any changes before we vote on it that you noticed from the prior agenda, board? I'll look for a motion then to approve the November 15th board meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Felipe. Second, please. And thank you. I'm so glad to have that second. Let's do a roll call vote, starting with Felipe, minutes.
Approved.
And also Brett Freeman.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here.
Thank
I
you.
did watch it online, but I wasn't here for all of it.
Yeah, so let's do abstain for that one, Mary Beth, and then I'll approve, and then Molly Chang. Good, and we have that. Thank you. Moving on to number 7, these are for discussion and action items. We'll take them one by one, starting with our letter A. And letter A is the board is being asked to approve the 2022-2023 first interim financial report, just as presented by Delano. Delano, will there be additional comments you want to make at this point on the interim financial report?
No, you guys have seen it, and as I mentioned, I can share it really quickly, just, since we are public here for just a second. This is the same information that I showed you in a summary format on the October financials. I'm gonna quickly just point out to you, and again, I'll do this because there's a couple of new members on the board. I just want to have a quick, this is why we do this, right? So this is an interim report, meaning that it's periodic, right? We're going to do this again in the spring. We'll file a second interim, right? And basically these are just quarterly updates to your authorizer, to your community, to everyone, in terms of the fiscal health of the school, with some budget projections and things like that. The most important things here, and again, is, these 2 columns here in the middle, that are in this. It's not pink, it's not orange. I'm not sure what color this is. But this color here, this
Green too.
yeah. I don't know what color this is, but that color. It's not, yeah. If anyone who can describe what this is, I'll be quite happy. But this color here, these 2 columns, are the actuals, unrestricted and restricted, as you can see, and as I mentioned before. In terms of what we've spent for the year here, you can see that. This lists all of our revenue sources, obviously, and again, like I said, this is a very busy report, which is why I don't necessarily dive too deep into it, but I'll give you the main points here. It lists all of our revenue resources. It shows here our original budget from June. So any person looking at this can see changes over the course of the year, right? So this was the original budget that we adopted in June. Then we made changes to the budget. Obviously, that was adopted in November. You can see those over here in these far interim budget columns, almost middle of the page in blue. And then your actuals are sort of sandwiched in between those two things, the original budget and the newly adopted budget. And then your as I mentioned, your actuals are sandwiched in between those two. And then over here, it's just more or less just comparing, budget to actuals, and then, budget to budget in terms of the original budget versus the newly adopted interim budget, things like that, and those differences. A lot of your authorizer uses this to test your fiscal health. So they will provide feedback once they've received it, things like that, as they normally do with everything, and similar to last year as well. And again, as I said, on the far left, that will list all of your revenue and expense categories. And you can see there, it just goes on all the benefits, your salaries, your, here classified and certificated, your salaries. And the same thing just repeats itself over, right? So now we're into books and supplies. And as you can see here, these are all columns that have to be completed and filled out. So it takes quite an amount of time to capture all of this information, but nonetheless, it's done over the course of a couple of days. But as I mentioned, as we get down here to them, let me just show you here so we can verify and vet. As I mentioned before, there's our loss of $534,000 that I mentioned from the October financials, because this is based upon that, right? And again, here you can see where we finished up the year. We started the year here with this 198,522. All right, that was the beginning fund balance. And you'll see this reflected in the audit as well. And then you can see here now our ending fund balance as of October 31st, which is this deficit of $336,000. And as we go down, it shows a balance sheet in this report. Like I said, it's comprehensive. So this is now the balance sheet section of that. And it shows the cash, which should tie out to what I mentioned to you before, 400,000 plus. Our liabilities as well. And again, you can see here, this is the current fund balance deficit of 336. On these subsequent pages are more budget projections that they asked for. So we got to put in another 2 years worth of budget projections here. Right. And again, these are just things that the authorizer requests just to test fiscal health, solvency, things like that. As we come down to this last page here, one of the last pages, and then ask for more information, right? So they want to know about some of the expenses that we have. And again, I'm doing this because a lot of you guys, at least two board members have not seen this. This is your first time here. So this page basically just says, hey, tell us about these expenses that we see, and they want more description of them and what they are, etc. Then we have our cash flow here. And then again, this is one of the things I want to make sure that I touch on, is to make sure that, as I mentioned, the rubber will hit the road as we get into February and March, right? We'll have to sort of look at, what we have projected, revise, and make sure that we're able to meet our obligations, because at that point, that's when we'll start to be paid upon, the P1 ADA that we'll currently have, which will be lower than the 320 that we had last year. And then last but not least, assumptions. And again, as you can see here, they want more information just about not just this year, but next year and subsequent years as well, in terms of enrollment, ADA, makeup of the school population, funding rates, things like that. Special ed revenues, FTEs, retirement. Quite a bit. So that is the interim report in a nutshell. And again, I don't expect everyone to have their heads wrapped around that document, but feel free to absolutely go through it, look at it. If there are questions, if there are concerns, I'll be more than happy to answer them, because like I said, it's not an easy document to digest, in one setting. You get better. It's like a good wine. It sort of gets better, I guess, as it ages or as you drink it. I'm not sure which one applies there.
We'll
All righty, so that is the interim report.
take some comments and or questions from board members too. I'll lead off with one based on the way that your forecast was for last year. I have a great deal of confidence in how it will shake out at the end of the year. We get another interim, I believe, end of January. Is that the time we do our second interim?
March.
March.
So we'll do one in March, which will be based on January. So to your point, Doug, almost correct. Yeah, it'll be due in March, but it'll be based on January's financials.
Perfect. So it begins to true up even more at that point.
Yes.
At what point could we make a adjustment to assumption if it changes? I think you're dead on right now for the ADA, which is the biggest factor. If we're able to inspire additional students and we're at 225 or 230, can we make an adjustment? You'll take that into account?
Yeah, it unfortunately wouldn't make a significant dent just because of the aggregate number of days that they would have that they would have attended another school, right? Would be far more than the amount of time that they would have attended, even if they came every day, right? So the closer we get to April 15th, it makes less sense, at that point to even factor that ADA, just because by April 15th, that's the final snapshot. And so, even between now and let's just say you added 25 kids between now and, when you guys come back from winter break, even that amount would be a small percentage increase overall, just because of the time factor in terms of their attendance.
And for the sake of board members and others, parents included, who are just so involved and positive on the school, built within our budget is our fundraising, which helps us to a balanced budget. So I do want to remind parents it's imperative that we all consider that opportunity to make a gift, because it makes our financials balance at the end. The total number is about 350,000, if I recall. We're counting on PTO for a portion, and then of course grants and individual contributions. I'll pause there and hear from other board members.
Question on the cash flow worksheet. Joanna, just make sure I'm reading this right. So are we saying that our ending cash position at the end of the year is going to be about 600K, or?
Yeah, and again, it's just a projection, right? So, all things being equal and hitting every single one of those benchmarks in that way would suggest that.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
But again, as Chairman Doug mentioned, one of the things that we know will sort of move the needle in the radar here a little bit will be that support from, your parent bodies, from Friends of Irvine International, the events that you will host, things like that. So some of those fundraising things will certainly contribute to the overall, not just the short term, but the long-term success of the school. Because, there's no doubt in my mind that, as we turn the corner into the next school year and the next school year after that, this school will certainly be a beacon within Irvine, and you'll probably have a lot more on your wait list, than you do today, probably 10 times over, because I think, this is a great school, and it certainly will get that traction, as time goes on. So I'm pretty confident that, the struggles that we have today will not be the struggles that we endure forever. So.
Yeah, so the 590 number that's there, about 350 of it is the PTO and the fundraising activities.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. A tall ask, I might add, but I think a very realistic and doable, with the input from the community and obviously support from the community. You guys have a great community, so I have no doubt that you guys will be able to pull this off.
Other board comments or questions prior to a motion? I'll invite then a motion to approve the 2022-23 first interim financial report as reported today. Board member like to make that motion?
Like to make the motion?
Okay, Brett Freeman, I'll second that as well. And we'll start on my left with Molly for vote. Molly? That's a yes. Doug Husen's a yes. Brett Freeman?
Yes,
And Felipe Delgado?
Yes.
Okay. Mary Beth, if you'll record that, that's item A. That brings us to item B, which is the board will review and approve the fiscal year 2021-22 audit report created by the Christie White organization or Christie White Associates. Pause for a moment for any public comments about our audit process or audit results. And no public comments, which gives us an opportunity to hear from Delano and the board members to invite questions. Delano, would you give us an overview on the legal requirement for this by our authorizer? And then I read the summary. I'm not asking you to read the entire report tonight. Answered it, but give us a sense of the outside reflection on our business processes. It's a little bit funny because you handle a great deal of those business processes.
Right.
You compliment yourself, but
So-
they're very complimentary. Way that North Compass? Have I got
Yes,
that?
sir. Yes.
That's
So-
our books and back office, but please give us the legal requirement and the summary, and then we'll invite
Mhm.
comments.
All right, so I'll button this up a little bit because normally what's going to happen in January is that Christie White and Associates, Marcy, will come and give a presentation on this, so I don't have to pat myself on the back and say, "Oh, that Delano, he did great work. This is a painless audit, and there were no findings." Right? I won't do that because that's her role to sort of present this in a way. I will give you just a top layer of this, obviously, and again. You're approving it as a formality because again, there's nothing in the ed code that says that you have to approve it. It just says that you have to turn one in by the 15th of December, right? But although the unaudited actuals does have its, I'm sorry, not the unaudited, the interim reports does have that ed code where it must be board approved, right? So we want to make sure that there's a clear distinction that, you don't have to approve it because it's, it is what it is in a sense already. And it's, you've already approved like the unaudited actuals and things like that were based on this audit, right? From which the audit was derived. All right. So as we dive into this a little bit, and again, I won't do a lot of the compliance pieces and things like that because that's more Marcy and it would be sort of out of bounds for me to sort of opine on things like that. But I'll sort of go down and go through, not necessarily just the numbers, because it is the responsibility of this board, right, to as your fiduciary's duties, is to make sure that the fiscal condition and health of the school is at the forefront, and that they are safeguarded, and that the assets of the school are safeguarded in that same manner. Normally in here, and again, I'm not going to ask you to read this tonight as a bedtime story, but we'll just sort of get down towards the bottom where most of what we want to touch on is. You've already seen the financials. There are some management letters in here and things like that. That's your responsibility in terms of how they approach the audit and things like that. The fiscal components are here, obviously. That's the balance sheet, things like that. I'll go down all the way to the bottom because this is, and I'll allow Marcy to speak to some of the notes in terms of her findings and things like that. Again, those are here as well. And I'll get down to those in just a second. So really, when you're looking at any audit, one of the first things that you want to do is what you want to get yourself is this page right here. And it's usually towards the end of it. And this is where the auditors will opine on what, their findings, et cetera, right? So this is, an unmodified opinion, which is the highest that you can get, right? And it basically says here that there were no Material weaknesses identified. Yes, there was a deficiency or material weakness, and she will show exactly what that is. This is just on the financial statements. And again, here on the state and federal side, there were no material weaknesses found. And again, the type of opinion that she's given here is an unmodified one, which is again favorable, and that's the highest opinion that you can have. She did bring out, and once you get into her doing this next month, a couple of things that she's going to go over, and it's one that I'll point out right here is revenue recognition. So on this one, she wrote this up as an audit finding because initially when and you can see her comments here as to why that happened. Initially in the onset of the school, there's some debate about certain pieces of restricted revenues that were donated to the school that needed clarity in terms of how they should be spent, right? And so because that was not done appropriately internally, there was this, you can see it here, and again, this is related to the K Family Foundation, and there was some conversations about whether it should have been for these things versus that thing. I think there were some differences of opinion about it. So we classified it as restricted, and then later on it was clarified after the fact. And so that's where we are here. But the lack of communication from executive director to the organization's board and business services regarding allowability of the fee-based program, award documentation was not provided, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the issue with it, right? It's not a repeat finding, it was just this one time with that one particular piece of revenue. And also they spoke about the after school program as well. And again, I will allow Marcy to go into the details on that when she comes back next month. Those were the only two findings that she had, was that one. And there were no other question costs or anything like that, right? There were no audit adjustments that we had to make. But as far as her process goes, and again, this is usually where they will come in and chime in on their process in terms of how they approach this, et cetera. It would be again, like I said, it would be unprofessional of me to sort of talk about that because, I would be talking about the work that I did for the audit, which would then, I could say, hey, this was great. This was a fantastic job. Nothing to see here, but that would be very misleading. So I can't go into that. I'll have to have Marcy speak to that and what she saw, how she approached it, etc. But definitely the management report would be something that I certainly welcome, encourage you guys to read. Dr. Bean will invite her back to do a presentation at next month's board meeting, so that way you guys will be a little bit more comfortable and hear from her directly in terms of her process and what she saw, things like that.
Okay.
But I will give you my unfiltered opinion that, this was a very, considering, this was your first year and a lot transpired, the audit went well, right? Thanks to, really thanks to your team, your staff, Dr. Bean, particularly Mary Beth, she was, she dove into this. This was her first audit, and she shined, right? There were lots of, things that she had to hunt and gather, things like that, and research and provide. Certainly was not easy, but she lived up to it. And this will make her better next year when we do this again. But they really thank your staff. They did a fantastic job stepping in and filling the void. Because this really started happening as soon as the school year was over. We turned to the audit, so they stepped in and stepped up well. Any questions on anything that you guys have seen or things you want to prepare for when Marcy shows up next month for this?
Just for me, clarification, how much should I allocate, how much time during the board meeting for that?
About 10 minutes tops.
What do you see?
Yeah, it's a very simple conversation. Again, it's just more or less her going through and discussing, in some amount of detail, her process, what she came across, a little bit more insight into some of the things that she saw, things like that.
Okay. Great, and we'll do that. We'll put it on the agenda
Mhm.
as well. And if there's anything beyond this that she wants published, we'll publish it as well.
Yeah, and it's ideal. This is a public document, so it will, your authorizers do have a copy of it. Things like that. You can certainly post it on your website if you so choose, or if someone asks for a copy, you can certainly charge a fee to make a copy of it for them.
Great. Well, we'll entertain some board comments and or questions. I do like the very second paragraph, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects, the financial position. And then it names our Western Mandarin Immersion Charter School, which really we do business as Irvine International Academy under that corporation. So what a great statement and a tribute to our partnership together, both our staff, but then also your organization. Board members, thoughts about the audit?
Thank you very much, Delano and North Compass, and thank you, Mary Beth, and the team here. What looks to be very, very positive considering our first year. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, we like that. We love that. We don't necessarily have to approve it, but let's at least vote to receive that as given, and we intend to discuss it next time. I'll make a motion that we accept the audit report from Christy White and Associates. Oh, we have a second right from Molly Chang. And so we'll start with the vote from that side. Molly? And Doug Hugheson's a yes. Brett Freeman?
Aye.
And Felipe Delgado?
Yes.
Wonderful. We accept that. Thank you, Delano. That moves us on then to Roman numeral 8, closing items. I'd love to do it in a round robin. There is, for informational purposes, the current schedule for remaining board meetings, just for reference for everybody. But let's go round robin style. We'll start with Felipe. Any board comments? They can be in general. They could be for Dr. Bean, or they could just be a simple happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, since we're close to that. But anything on your mind?
Yeah, actually, this is for Delano. I think the school benefits from the energy that you put into the audits and its team support and everything. And so I want to thank you for that. But I got to tell you, it's not as good as when you do it in person. Just FYI, okay? Just a comment.
I will say this. Had I known that there was going to be a display of Christmas lights and festivities like this, I would have canceled my other board meeting today and shown up there. But next year we'll plan to be in person. So we'll make sure that we have it on a day that no one else is having a board meeting, and then definitely I'll be there in person.
It is the part of my second comment that I was a little disappointed not to see you here during our festival, which would have given you an opportunity to make a donation. Thank you very much.
I knew that was coming someplace. And rest assured, I am on the hook for it. I am on the hook for it. Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll go to Brad if you'd like. We're just coming up on the first half of the year. It's crazy to me. Like, it feels like we just started. Like, I really want to thank you, Dr. Bean. You just came in here and you've done so many wonderful things. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is my third time here. I still want to say I'm learning so much each time, and I see everybody puts in their heart into this school, into children. I'm just so glad to be part of it.
I'll echo and amplify that as well. The energy, the enthusiasm, and the attitudes of everyone from the children, parents and staff, and administrators, stellar, off the charts environment. Rarely do you see this in any organization, but to be in a school makes all the difference. These children are going to be remarkably different than their peers And so thank you, the entire staff for creating that kind of environment and culture. I believe it will be self-sustaining and it's going to be very, very attractive, just as it has been to those new parents that come into this environment and say, I want that. I've never seen anything like this. And so glad that's happening. I will say this, just having been involved with schools a bit as now all of us have together. I'll wish all of you just a wonderful Christmas break. I pray it will be a break. When you're in school and serving in a school, you're all in it, all the way till 9 p.m. most days. And so please do give your full attention to your families, the holidays, and rest, relaxation. And we'll be back at it before we know it. What is the day we come back? We'll be here tomorrow. And then when's our day back? January 4th. Okay, well, enjoy every moment between that. Anything else from board members before I ask for a motion for adjournment? Brett, anything?
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa.
Yeah, enjoy it all. Wow, it's the season, isn't it? Well, then I'll lead out with that motion for adjournment. A second, please.
I second.
Thank you. And then I'll start to the left. Molly?
Yes.
And I also vote for adjournment. And Brett?
Aye.
And Felipe?
Aye.
And board members, enjoy your cookies, your Christmas cookies. We're adjourned and we'll end the recording. Thank you, Mary Beth and team.
Bye, Delano.
Bye, Mary Beth, Dr. Bean. Bye,
Bye.
folks.
Bye.